Hello there. Welcome to the next episode of Bosephus the Truck, my 1960 F100 restoration project. And I think this is episode 28. And more interestingly, this is the first episode in over 3 years. Yeah. Well, I may have got a little sidetracked, unfortunately, but I'm back on it. I think my last episode was about me making a cab lift with my son, who was 3 years younger then. And then I mentioned I was moving on to the core support, which I did. I had a big amount of footage recorded of the core support repair and how I went through it all. And then I lost some data. I got a little disheartened, and my momentum slowed down a little bit more. And then I kind of lost my nest egg that I had to set aside for like paint and powder coat and all that type of stuff. I got disheartened a little bit more, and then I just kind of lost interest, unfortunately. I mean, I wasn't just sitting on my button all that time. I did a few motorcycles, and I built a patio in the back, and I spent plenty of time with my family. But every day I would come out here and look at this truck. It was basically just a frame on some wheels, the cab, the exposed motor, and a whole bunch of stuff put on top of the motor so it wouldn't get wet. And every day I'd just look at it and be like, I think I should get motivated to get back on that. But I never did. Until a few weeks ago. I did manage to finish the core support. I'll show that in a minute. But I was going to move on to the fenders, and then I realized I need to actually put this thing together to kind of figure out the gaps and everything. So that's kind of where I am now. All right, I'm going to do a little quick tour here. So basically, what started with just the cab and the core support, I got a little bit more curious to make sure everything was fitting correctly. And so I put on the fenders, and I realized, I don't need to bother with the fenders until I put on the door. And so this is actually a pair of donor doors I picked up a few years ago. This is actually my third set. The ones that came on this truck originally were a little bit rusted out on the bottom. And so I was going to use the parts truck's doors. And then I found these, and they're super nice. They're not off a custom cab, so I'm going to have to put in some holes. No big deal. So I spent, I would say, probably 4 hours getting these doors to have just as good a gaps as I could possibly get. So if you remember, this whole back skin is a transplant from the big window truck. I'll show you here. So you can watch a past video on this, but everything was spot welded and removed and grafted onto this regular window truck. It's just been sitting here needing a little bit of finishing work. I did the cab corners in a video. I did the inner cab corners in a video. I also did the front cab supports in another video, and did all sorts of repairs on the front of the cab here. So now I've got two doors pretty well, perfectly lined up. I did a little bit of slice and dice to get the body lines just to be a little bit more accurate. I know it's just a farm truck, and these things weren't perfect from the factory. It's no Ferrari. I did notice the bottoms of these doors actually kind of curve, and so it kind of closes up this body line right here at the rocker. So I took out probably 1/8 of an inch of the door. That's going to have to get repaired. Just weld that up. These doors are pretty good. So I've got these doors all lined up. And so what I'm going to do next is actually make sure the cab is straight. And I'm going to start keeping records and take measurements of where everything was. So when I get this cab in place, I'm going to take cross-reference measurements, write that down. So when I put this back on after it's painted, I'll put it back in the same spot. So you mount the cab to the frame, you mount the doors to the cab, you mount the fenders and the core support to the cab, and door. So you got to do them in that order. So I'll make sure this is all as good as I possibly can get it. I need to do inner and outer lower fender repairs. Here's the other side. Same issue on this fender. I know they make patch panels for these, but I'm going to see if I can get away with doing it on my own first. I'm going to make sure these body lines are like as perfect as I can get them. It kind of opens up as it comes down. I think it's because this is like basically non-existent at this point. Oh, these side mirror supports came from the donor truck. It probably took me an hour just to take them off and put them onto here because I had to like deal with rust issues and I had to tap the nut setters. It was an hour long. It was a whole lunch break just to do those. So this door is the same way. I think I have a pretty good system now of how to install doors on this truck. I might go into it more deeply on another video, but what I do is I put 1/8 inch paint sticks in all the gaps, and then I use my cherry picker to lift the whole door up into place and tighten it up. Okay, let me get into the core support here. I'm only holding this balance up by a couple bolts. I'm gonna have to put this down. Okay. So here's core support, and every bit of this is completely new, fabricated by me to look as close to factory as I could get. I made it with 1.25 square tubing that I kind of flipped around to give myself lips, recreated spot welds, recreated all these different little ovalized slots, and I actually added drainage, which the original did not have. So this probably took me 20 hours, I think. There's just a hair bit left to kind of finish up on it, but it's pretty much done. And in the last 3 years, I see that you can now get the whole patch kit for this whole panel. I think it's about $300 or so. 20 hours versus $300. What would you have done? Well, it's too late now. But I think it came out pretty good. There's the Y block right there. I'm still trying to decide if I want to go with the Y block, the 292, or the 223, which is what originally was in this truck. I went to Colorado for that engine, and guess what? There's a video on it. Anyway, I'm still thinking. I'm kind of leaning towards the 223, which is funny. I took all that effort and time to go get that engine, and I'm just going to stick with the one that was in the truck. The 223, the inline 6, will give me better gas mileage, and it's pretty much bulletproof. I know these Y blocks can be a little temperamental and a bit of a gas hog. You know, and I'm just building an old farm truck. That's what I'm doing here. I'm not going for a hot rod, so I might stick with the 223. I know there's a few little engine improvements you can do, and you can change out the gearing on the rear end. So still thinking about it. I've got a while before I really need to get serious about that. So the next things I'm going to do now that the doors are lined up good is I'm going to take all this stuff back off and get this cab nice and straight and locked down, start taking some measurements, and then start fitting the fenders and getting those gaps all good, and then repairing the fenders, of course. Before I even do that, I think I'm going to go through the cab and just kind of finish some things I kind of left off. Like, I never finished the lip that goes over this. And you know, I still have some welds I need to finish grinding and stuff like that. I don't think it'll take too long. There's a few little welds along some of the inner doorways here, especially on the other side. Finish the cab and move on to the fender. So everybody, thanks for catching up with me. I thought it was a good idea to kind of do an update on this since I haven't done it for so long. And you know, I feel like I got the itch to get going again. So I've got a lot of sheet metal work to do yet. I made a humongous spreadsheet, honestly, of how long I think everything's going to take me. Time and money, that's all it is. Thanks for watching, everybody.